Hey, hi, how you doing? This is the Gamertron and welcome back to the Gamertron Show. A while ago, I released a video called Top 10 Games I Hate, but Everybody Else Likes. Well, today, on this video, it's time to do the opposite and let you guys know what are the top 10 games I like, but everybody else seems to hate. Please keep in mind that this is personal opinion, and if you dislike these games, well, you dislike them. If you can't understand why I like them, well, I'm sorry I can't help you, but I like these games. I enjoyed my time with them. I think they're legitimate good games with that hard work has been into, and I cannot comprehend. I simply cannot comprehend after playing these games why anyone would call them a bad game. And let me tell you why. Well, no more time wasted, let us begin. These are the top 10 games I like, but everybody else seems to hate. Number 10, Deep Black Reloaded. Now right off the bat, I will agree with you on this. The name is stupid. Deep Black? And what's with the Reloaded? This isn't a sequel or a spin-off. It's the first game in a series. Why is it called Reloaded? Doesn't make any sense. And the whole Deep Black thing? Yes, you can make a lot of porn jokes. I agree. The name of the game is stupid. That I will not deny. However, the game is functional. The game is not broken, the game is not buggy, or glitchy. Does the game show a lot of similarities to other games? Yes, I will humbly admit that. The main character's life bar being on the back of his suit, yes, that is exactly the same as Dead Space. Yes, that is something taken from Dead Space. But hey, unlike in Dead Space, you have regenerating health. The health bar on the back is there to represent when your health is low and when you need to take cover and recharge when it starts glowing red. Besides that, on the back, does the main character's armor look like every other sci-fi armor out there? Yes. Is the story poor? Yes. Is the voice acting below average? At some points, I will say yes. At some points, the voice acting becomes incredibly cheesy, incredibly corny, and it's obvious this is a low-budget game. However, keep in mind that even for being a low-budget game, Deep Black Reloaded has some decent visuals, and Deep Black Reloaded has a fun few gimmicks, like the fact that you swim underwater, there's underwater combat, you have this grappling hook that you can use underwater. You can pull in enemies off ledges with your grappling hook, drag them into the water, and then stab them for a satisfying kill. You have these fun little skirmishes with these giant leech claw fish. It's a really weird looking robot. You have these little skirmishes with this weird robot underwater, and this little duel you have with it, constantly stabbing it with your grappling hook blade. Endlessly satisfying. Never gets old. And I will also admit, Deep Black Reloaded, its shooting, it's very light. There's no weight to it, it doesn't feel heavy. And the game's difficulty, the game has massive difficulty spikes. While I do humbly admit, Deep Black Reloaded has quite a few problems. However, even with those problems, Deep Black Reloaded is still a solid, fine, fun, third-person shooter with a neat little gimmick of underwater combat, while at the same time, it's also one of the very few third-person shooters that actually offers you a legitimate challenge. The game will test your patience and tenacity. Deep Black Reloaded is fine, people. It has problems for sure, but the game is fine.
Fierce. Multiple tangos in this area.
Tangos are the seeds of peace. If you want it to grow, you gotta put them in the ground.
Number 9, Orion Dino Horde, or as has now been renamed, Orion Prelude. You know what? I'm just going to call it Orion Dinosaurs. There. Everybody happy? Good. Orion has been getting a lot of flack the past few years. The game has been in alpha, beta, full release, and re-released versions, with the game's developer, Spiral Studios, looking to constantly improve their game, add new additions, and just make the perfect best game possible. So you gotta praise them for that. You gotta praise a developer who constantly works on their game even after release, even after alpha and beta, that they still add new additions. They're constantly fixing bugs, glitches, anything. They're constantly improving their game. And they've been just working on this game for the longest time, this Orion game. It was originally Orion Dino Beatdown, then Orion Dino Horde, and now it's called Orion Prelude. It's all the same game, mind you. And each time, it keeps getting such low reviews, especially from critics. I tried to watch Total Biscuit's review of the game, and I couldn't help but cringe at his review. People really need to lighten the hell up. The whole game is two things: PvP multiplayer and a horde mode against dinosaurs that you can play solo or co-op. That is the game. That is what Orion Dino, god dang it, now I'm messing up the names again. Orion, I'm calling it Orion. That is what Orion has always been about. Player versus player multiplayer with simple controls, with unique abilities, a variety of weapons to pick from, a light amount of customization for your character and classes, with there being 3 different classes. I mean, there's nothing legitimately wrong with the game just because it's cheap, just because it's a different style of indie. People want their indies to be platformers and unique, special, one-of-a-kind games. But when an indie developer makes an actually solid, working, fun, third-person shooter that has a horde mode and functional player versus player multiplayer, that's impressive for an indie studio. That's very impressive. Also, the game doesn't look half bad. While the textures are simple and the environments are simple, the game is extremely colorful and pleasant to look at. Also, dinosaurs. It's one of the very few dinosaur games out there, and it's a ton of fun mowing down hordes of dinosaurs. Lighten up, people. Orion Prelude is a blast. Give it a shot. Number 8. EDF, Earth Defense Force, Insect Armageddon. Now, this game receives quite a bit of flack for 2 things. One, it's a budget game. It's obviously a low-budget game. You can tell from the visuals, not gonna lie. It's a budget game, and not too many people are into budget games, or ignore budget games, or take budget games way too harshly, and don't give them a fair approach. And there are hardcore Earth Defense Force fans who are upset that this is an American-made game, and not made by the original Japanese developers. Well, I'm sorry to inform you, but EDF Insect Armageddon is a ton of fun. No matter what you say, if you complain about graphics, if you complain about how it's not the same style, or it's not the same whatever as the original Earth Defense Force games, I'm sorry. Earth Defense Force Insect Armageddon is fun. It's a B-movie game. It's a budget game. Budget games are the B-movies of the video game industry. And guess what? There's a lot of fun to be had in this game. The multiplayer is solid. The game absolutely 100% completes what it set out to do. You are an Earth Defense Force soldier with a ton of explosive weapons against armies of giant alien insects and giant robots. There! There's enough. The game doesn't have any more depth or anything more special than that. I will admit the visuals are average to below average, but that adds to the whole budget game B-movie feel of it all. The game is perfectly enjoyable. The game literally does nothing wrong. It completes everything it set out to do. It's a fun ride. Lighten up, people. So it doesn't have the production values of Call of Duty. So it's not Call of Duty. So what? So it's not like the other Earth Defense Force games. Those other Earth Defense Force games are low budget too. Just because they don't take place in Japan. Just because they don't have the same cheesy, low-budget feel that those games have. This game has a different low-budget, cheesy feel. So what? They're still good, fun games. lighten up. Number 7, Ninja Blade. Ninja Blade is awesome. It's an awesome game. Now this game, I would say it's just above a low budget. It just strives above a low budget. How? Even so, you notice there are obvious budget quality issues here and there. You can't help but appreciate what the developers set out to do. This is a Japanese game. This is an anime made into a game. Now, it's not based off an anime. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying this is the most anime video game out there. Its plot is ridiculous. Its action scenes are over the top and beautiful to look at. Its characters, its voice acting are cheesy and weird. The monsters in this game, oh my god, the creatures and enemies and monsters. They're so wacky and out of this world and crazy and just Japanese. You can't help but love this. This is such Japanese anime inspired design and action and feel. This game is so much fun. How can you not have fun with Ninja Blade? The combat is solid. It has great hack and slash gameplay, having you switch between 3 different sword weapons. A medium sword, 2 lightweight fast moving swords, and 1 giant heavy sword. You have also special ninja abilities and powers and throwing discs. Also, Ninja Blade, I don't care what you say, Ninja Blade has the best quick time events ever. Why? Because there's an option to turn the QuickTime events into 1 button presses. So I can literally just spam the mouse button, watch basically a cutscene of all the awesome action happening. Usually you're too busy interacting in the cutscene to focus on the awesome action. But with Ninja Blade, there's the option to make the cutscene super easy, just tapping 1 button over and over again. And hell, for those of you who like actual challenging and fun QuickTime events, Ninja Blade is the game for you. The QuickTime events are challenging and satisfying, while sure, like I said, there's that easy tap, that 1 button for those of you. So the game even appeals to people who don't like QuickTime events. For those of you who like QuickTime events, they're challenging and rewarding. For those of you who don't like it, there's an option to switch it to just a 1 button press. So, Ninja Blade, best QuickTime events ever. A lot of crazy anime Japanese fun, solid hack and slash gameplay, fun boss battles, awesome looking creatures. I recommend Ninja Blade. Give it a shot. Also, the main character's name is Ken. The main character's name is Ken. Does that remind you of a other ninja from another Japanese ninja franchise whose name is Ryu, and his name is based off a Street Fighter character, and this ninja's character is based off a Street Fighter character, and those 2 Street Fighter characters happen to be best friends and the staples and idols of the series? Huh. Number 6, Alien Rage. Alien Rage is hard, I will not lie. When you first play this game, it is overly difficult. It is overly challenging. It is cheap as balls when you first play it. However, after you beat the game and have overcome its overbearing difficulty, once you beat the game, you unlock all the perks being special abilities, special skills you can add to your character, and one of them is increased health. And by God, once you add that increased health perk, don't ever take it off, because after you put on that increased health perk, after the game actually, with that increased health, the game actually gives you a fighting chance, the game becomes a lot of fun. It becomes a solid first-person sci-fi shooter with fun aliens to kill, satisfying weapons to use, pretty visuals. Like, the developers of the game use the Unreal Free engine to its best. However, I will admit you will see the colors blue and blue a lot. The game does have some well-detailed, well-animated alien enemies to fight, and this game is all about shooting well-animated alien enemies that die satisfyingly, with alien blood and heads exploding. And I like how the game is kind of a quasi semi-combination of an old-school shooter and new-school shooter. The game is fast-paced. It throws a ton of enemies at you. Your weapons all have a secondary fire, and usually that secondary fire results in an explosion. The game is full of explosions. All while, the game has a level structure allowing you to replay levels like games of today. You can replay every single level in the game. You also have regenerating health. However, once you get that health boost, it's a lot more satisfying because without the health boost perk, you die way too easily and you're constantly taking cover, because once you have the health boost perk, you can play the game it was meant to be played. You have to kill all the enemies before they kill you. Simple as that. No hiding behind cover. It's running, charging them, blitzkrieging the enemies constantly, seeing if they can kill you before they take your health down. Using as much firepower as possible, and that's when the game becomes fun. I know that's something you shouldn't have to do with a game, play an unreasonably unfair difficulty of a game before you unlock something that actually makes the game tolerable and fun. I know that's not something you usually want to do with a game, but Alien Rage is worth it. Alien Rage is a fun first-person shooter that is worth multiple playthroughs. While your first playthrough may be overly difficult and not fun, the playthroughs after that will be a ton of fun. Also, the game surprisingly has a decent sci-fi story. Granted, it's a deep sci-fi story that you have to look through and you have to hunt for by looking for audio logs, because the story without the audio logs is pretty simple. Standard Space Marine kills all the enemies, save the world. But yeah, Alien Rage is a ton of fun. You may rage the first time. Second and third, you'll have a ball. Number 5, The Cursed Crusade. The Cursed Crusade is awesome. Granted, yes, it is another budget game. It has obvious budget constraints, and budget limitations, and things with the budget that cause flaws with the game. I get that, but how can you deny how satisfyingly corny and cheesy and over-the-top the story is, and how satisfying and fun and actually dynamic and deep the combat system is in this game? Yes, the graphics are not pretty. Yes, the lip sync, the voice sync, the mouth animations are awful. They're awful, I'm not gonna lie. But the voice acting is cheesy and fun, and the actors are doing a damn good job. The villains are so overly villainous and evil, it's hilarious. There are some actual fun and intelligent and clever bits of dialogue from our two main protagonists. And once again, The Cursed Crusade has some of the best hack and slash gameplay ever, because it's actually dynamic. There are a ton of combos, so many combos to unlock with every single weapon and weapon combination in the game. Every single weapon has multiple combos. It has light attacks, heavy attacks, and those light attacks and heavy attacks can be chained together to create varying different combos and moves. And they actually look different. Your character actually has completely unique animations, completely 100% unique animations for each move, for each combo with that weapon. And every weapon, every one-handed weapon in the game, because there are a few two-handed weapons, every one-handed melee weapon in the game can be dual-wielded, and each dual wield of each different type of weapon, and especially different combinations of weapons, have their own unique combos and own unique animations. The hack and slash gameplay is so satisfying and so full of depth. And not just that, besides the amount of combos, you can also execute enemies. When enemy is low on health, your main character will automatically do a brutal execution on them. And there's also these nice little dueling segments where you and an enemy have your swords locked in combat, and you have to press the right buttons to get them off. The hack and slash gameplay in this game is awesome. Yes, the game is cheesy. Yes, the graphics are average to below average. Yes, the mouth animations and lip sync is awful. But you know what? The game is good B-movie, B-game, budget game fun. It's a good game with a great hack and slash system and a fun cheesy story. Lighten up, people. The Cursed Crusade is awesome.
I thought my offer was fair, but you don't seem to value your life. This is madness! No. This is the curse!
Number 4, Garshasp the Monster Slayer and Garshasp the Temple of the Dragon. People, again, are way too harsh on this game. People should be praising this game. People should be looking up to this game. Garshasp, the Garshasp series, the Garshasp games, are indie games. These are made by indie developers, yet they are able to create a third-person platformer, hack and slash, and puzzle game that is a worthy successor to the Prince of Persia games. This game oozes inspiration from Prince of Persia and is able to be a worthy successor to it, and it's an indie game. Guys, indie developers don't have a lot to work with, and the fact that an indie developer was able to pull off what they did with Garshasp is impressive. Yes, the hack and slash gameplay is simple. You have light, medium, and heavy attacks. And there's not really much, there's maybe one or two, maybe three combos you can do with that. I will admit, yes, the game has very few enemy types. There's like 4 or 5, I will admit. Yes, the game has only 3 boss battles. There could be more. Yes, the game is short. I will admit the game is short. I will admit all this. But still, Garshasp is a good, fun time. Even with the game's low budget, indie budget, it's able to make everything feel epic. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with simple hack and slash gameplay. The PC does not have enough hack and slash games. And the fact that Garshasp is an exclusive to the PC and it's a hack and slash platformer, we don't have enough of those. So you know what? I want more games like Garshasp. I hope Garshasp, the series continues, because Garshasp is awesome. It's underrated and overhated. It's a good game. It's an impressive game for an indie studio. The games are fun. Hack and slash gameplay is fun, to me at least. The game is not bad, and the people who call it bad really are way too harsh on it. Number 3, Clive Barker's Jericho. Alright, let me get this out of the way. Clive Barker's Jericho is not the worst horror game ever made. There are far worse horror video games out there, and it's very easy to point at a bunch of indie horror games that suck ass and are Slenderman Outlast ripoffs. So, suck it. Also, Clive Barker's Jericho is a good horror game. So many people confuse horror for jump scares. The game doesn't need to have good jump scares. The game is disturbing. Clive Barker's Jericho has some of the most disturbing, frightening, and disgusting visuals you will ever see. The enemies in this game are unpleasant to look at, and that's something not a lot of games can do that. They make the enemies in the game unpleasant to look at. You don't want to look at them. You want to kill them and get away from them as quickly as possible. They're so disturbing and out of this world and dark and gruesome. And Clive Barker's Jericho has an interesting premise and story about this firstborn, God's first creation, God's first mistake, because the firstborn turned out to be almost become more powerful than God himself and turned out to be corrupt and evil. God's first mistake. So ashamed and afraid of the firstborn, he locks it away in this ancient city While trapped away in this city, in this new dimension within the city, the Firstborn is free to create horrible monstrosities that you and your team will have to fight. And speaking of your team, this is one of the best squad and team tactics games out there. You have a squad that focus on the occult. Each one of your squad members is unique and plays and feels different from the other, so you have a ton of different gameplay styles to choose from. The sniper character, Black, she has a special ability to fire her bullet, take direct control of the bullet in slow motion, allowing you to aim up that perfect headshot on an ugly enemy. The machine gunner or heavy weapon specialist Diego has a fire demon living in his arm, and you can unleash that fire demon on your enemies as it attacks multiple enemies and lights them on fire. The character Billy has a sword, and she's one of the very few characters that is constantly focused on melee combat, and she can get some pretty awesome sword kills. Also, she uses blood magic, which is sick. And the fact that you can switch to all of these characters at will at any time, and you get to command these characters with very good squad commands, having them set up offensive and defensive positions, having them take objective or attack certain enemies. The squad commands in this game are great and make you really feel like a squad leader, and make you really feel like you're playing as these very different characters. Clive Barker's Jericho is a good game. It's a decent horror game and a very fun first-person shooter. Give it a chance, guys. It really isn't that bad. It can be quite a bit of fun. There are a lot worse games out there. Give this game a break. Number 2, Hydrophobia Prophecy. I hear no good things about this game. There is nothing good. I cannot find a single good review on this game. Nobody likes Hydrophobia Prophecy, and I can't understand why. It does nothing wrong. Again, this is an indie game. For an indie game, this is impressive as all hell. Hydrophobia Prophecy is a great game. It really is a great game. It has a great female protagonist. One of the very few great female protagonists out there. She's realistic. She's a realistic character. She gets afraid, she gets nervous, she gets angry, she gets curious. When she feels dreadful or worried or concerned about something, you feel that way too. The game is also strategic. It's not your simple third-person shooter. You have only one gun, a pistol with several different ammo types. Most of those ammo types being non-lethal, so you have to try and use the environment to take out these enemies. You have to find ways to electrocute the water the enemy's in. You have to find ways to blow up certain explosives that are near them. And later on in the game, when you develop your superpower to control water, oh man, it is so much fun throwing enemies around with water that you are controlling or drown them in it. Jeez. But yeah, speaking of water, Hydrophobia Prophecy has the best, most realistic water from any video game ever. The water is a substance. It moves. It can be moved. There are several physics-based puzzles where moving water, lowering water levels, swimming through the water, moving certain amounts of water, or evening or balancing it out is required. And they are so dynamic and cool and fun, and seeing the water flow and move realistically, it's so impressive. And this is an indie game, and it has the best water effects and best water graphics and best, well, gameplay focused around water than any other game ever. Hydrophobia Prophecy is an awesome game with a great female protagonist, an interesting sci-fi universe, and the best water physics, water effects out there. Give Hydrophobia Prophecy a chance, man. It's a good game. And before I reveal the number 1 game I like but everybody else hates, time for your usual recap. And the number one game I like but everybody else hates is...
Resident Evil 6.
Resident Evil 6. I really don't understand Resident Evil fans. I really don't. They make no sense whatsoever. And I really think way too many people jumped on the bandwagon of hating this game without even giving it a fair chance. And that's not cool, because there is so much hard work put in this game. This is an obvious AAA big budget game that a lot of hard work was put into, and people just write it off and shit on it. No, Resident Evil 6 is a good game. It's an undeniable good game. You can say you hate it, you can say you dislike it as much as you want, but when you say that Resident Evil 6 is shit, you are wrong, good sir. You are absolutely wrong. 100% wrong, because Resident Evil 6 is not a bad game. Feel free to dislike it, but don't you dare call it a bad game. I kind of understand where Resident Evil fans are coming from, because they believe in some twisted, far-out plane of existence. They believe that Resident Evil is a horror franchise, and Resident Evil 6 isn't scary. I'm sorry to inform you, but Resident Evil has never been scary. Yes, maybe the first game scared you as kids, and now you're blinded by nostalgia, but Resident Evil isn't scary. Outlast is scary. Slender is scary. Amnesia: The Dark Descent is scary. Hell, Dead Space is scarier than Resident Evil. And I'm including Dead Space 3 here. Resident Evil is not scary and has never been scary. Resident Evil has always been one of two things: a zombie survival game or an action game. Like it or not, everybody's favorite Resident Evil, Resident Evil 4, it's an action game. Resident Evil 6 does some of the exact same things that Resident Evil 4 does, but does it better. It tells a better story. It has memorable characters. The visuals. How can anyone bitch about the visuals about Resident Evil 6? Oh my god, Resident Evil 6 looks beautiful. The graphics are phenomenal. Not only does the game run well, the game looks great. It has solid textures, a lot of color, great special effects and visuals, and the cutscenes are so well animated. The cutscenes in Resident Evil 6 are beautiful and so well animated. The voice acting is top notch. While I will admit the dialogue and writing can be very Japanese, Resident Evil is Japanese, I expect nothing less, so Resident Evil 6 has a very anime style to it, but that doesn't change the fact that the cheesy, zombie, over-the-top action benefits Resident Evil, and it benefits Resident Evil 6. The gameplay in Resident Evil 6 is solid, functional, and it's fun. Resident Evil 5 and 4 are not fun. I cannot stand having to stand still and aim, and not being able to move while I aim. That is bollocks. Even Dead Space knew that was bollocks, and had Isaac Clarke moving around while he aimed. And good God, thank goodness Resident Evil learned from it. Being able to move and shoot is a godsend. And not just that, Resident Evil 6 has some fun mechanics. The melee combat, the melee combat is solid in this game. The melee combat has weight. Punching and kicking zombies has never been more satisfying. And Resident Evil 6 has some legitimate fun enemies to fight with some varying, unique zombies and unique mutant creatures. The boss battles are a ton of fun as well. Also, there are some great set-piece moments. And co-op in the game is great. Co-op in the game is phenomenal. The game also has wonderful video gamey, horror movie-esque, and action-packed atmosphere. The atmosphere in this game is phenomenal. The set pieces are great. The cutscenes are wonderfully well animated. The gameplay is solid. Resident Evil 6 does nothing wrong. It's a good game. It is a good game. It does nothing wrong. So it's not like other Resident Evil games. So it's not scary. Oh, boo fucking who. Resident Evil has never been scary. Resident Evil 6 is an awesome game, a great game, a good game. And stop living in the past and living in nostalgia with older Resident Evil games. Because you're being way too harsh, way too critical, and being way too silly. Just silly in your overly hatred, your hatred of Resident Evil 6. Resident Evil 6 has all the qualities and all the aspects of a good game. Whether you personally dislike it is up to you, but don't you dare ever call Resident Evil 6 shit again, cause you know it's not.
Jesus, Scooter! You could have warned me!
Kate, I've got 2 balls and neither of them are crystal.